This is Football at 4.
Philadelphia's really settled into who they are. It seems like they're playing much better. We've all known that they've had the players to get it done. They have great talent on both sides of the ball. They're really starting to gel as units and play as a team. And I think that that's the thing that's been really fun to watch. The last couple of weeks, they're figuring out their identity on offense, and they're starting to really play to their strengths.
That was Jason Kelce on the New Heights podcast. You know, what are they starting to do well? They're starting to play to their strengths. They're starting to figure out who they are. The Philadelphia Eagles taking on the Commanders tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. Football at 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. Geoff Mosher is going to join us for today's Football at 4. And, of course, this hour of the show, it's brought to you by Jersey Cow. It's a great place for the family to hang out and eat ice cream. Jersey Cow has homemade ice cream, small batch here in South Jersey with only the best ingredients. Enjoy Jersey Cow in Northfield and Brigantine with all the fall flavors. The best ice cream open every day from 10 to noon. Ice cream's a year-round thing at Jersey Cow. So, you know, Kelce talking about the identity of the team 9 games into the season. This is who the Eagles are. They are a team that I think people are trepidatious about believing in, but they are finding their way. They are finding an identity. They are finding out that they can be a team that depends on Saquon Barkley. They are a team that can depend on the big play. But a lot of it does come down to me, how well the quarterback plays. I mean, all this is great, but if Jalen Hurts doesn't have a great, I don't want to say he doesn't have a great game that they can't win, but he, like, as we talked about last hour, if Washington says we're going to put the ball in Jalen Hurts' hand, he has to be able to answer the bell. So we'll get into it with Football at 4. Geoff Mosher is going to join us in just a couple of moments here. This is the second game since the merger in 1970 that 2 outright top teams in rushing touchdowns at this stage of the season. These are the 2 teams that like to run the ball the most. They score the most and get it on the ground. It's Philadelphia and it's Washington. You don't think of Washington much as a team that likes to run the ball all that much. They don't have a Saquon Barkley. Brian Robinson, will he play? Will he not play? The injury report is out. What do we know for at least Philadelphia? Has Washington put theirs out yet?
Washington put theirs out because they listed Lattimore as out. So we do know that Jordan Mailata is good to go.
Well, they announced that earlier today.
Yeah. Mailata is good to go. He is a full participant listed on the practice report. The Eagles have announced they're activating him for the game. No players are listed as questionable or doubtful for tomorrow night.
All right, so Smith is limited on the injury report.
But again, it was an estimation. There was actually no practice.
Yes, but listed as limited, so I guess he's the only one that might be in question tomorrow. Dean, Goddard, Huff, Mailata, and Slay, all full participants for the game. And you would imagine that all of them will be ready to go. And that game, of course, is here on 97.3 ESPN. The Eagles, pretty healthy. Although, you don't have Devontae Smith, that does change things a little bit for you.
Well, again, he's not listed as questionable at all. There's no designation next to his name. So if there was a designation next to his name, I think we should be a little more concerned. But as of right now, it looks like the Eagles are the healthiest they have been since their bye week coming out of that.
Yeah, and that was one of the questions that was asked to Nick Sirianni about being at week 10 or 11 of the season. I think we're in week 11 now. Week 11 of the season and having essentially full health. I mean, this is a league where everybody has been beat up and losing guys pretty regularly. The Eagles, they've lost their fair share of guys, and they've kind of persevered through it. So, none to report on the game status, just a limited participation for Devontae Smith today. If they were to practice, it was a walkthrough, so it's an estimation. But they're going to get Jordan Mailata back on the field. He's going to play left tackle. Fred Johnson will go to the bench, and it just adds another, another piece to this offensive line that's played pretty well. They enter, by the way, 5 straight home division games they have won, tied for the second longest home win streak in the last 20 years this Eagles team has. Think about that. They've won 5 straight home division games. They're going to play Washington with a chance now, if they win the game, to go 2 losses up on Washington. Philly would have 2 losses. Washington would have 4. If that happens, The Eagles would have a 63% chance to win the NFC East, according to ESPN Analytics, and that drops to right now they enter the game with 63. It is 81 if they win the game. It drops to 38 with a loss. So it tells you the importance of this game on Thursday night, and there's a lot of different numbers that we can kind of look through here. Jalen Hurts, 15 career games with multiple rushing touchdowns, 5 more than any other quarterback in NFL history. Can the Commanders keep him in check? He has done a much better job in recent weeks doing stuff with his legs. When the pocket breaks down, sidestepping, and then taking what's given, he looks like he has more of a burst than he had at times last year, times earlier in the year. So I think that's been a positive that has helped him. He ranks in the top 3 in QBR and completion percentage versus man coverage this season. The Commanders use man coverage at the 7th highest rate in the NFL. So if they're going to man up the Eagles' wide receiving core, you can anticipate Jalen Hurts would have a good day against this group. It's not a great secondary for Washington.
No, it's not. A quick rundown of the Washington injury report. So tackles Andrew Wiley and Cornelius Lucas are listed as questionable, but Dan Quinn told the media today that they have both done a good job getting through the week of practice. The expectation is they will go. Brian Robinson will return tomorrow. He is a full go for Thursday night. And we mentioned Lattimore. He has been ruled out. Also has been ruled out, interestingly enough, Mike, is their place kicker, Austin Seibert. So,
how many kickers have gotten hurt this year?
All of them. Except for Jake Elliott.
Unbelievable. Well, he never kicks. They always go for it. All right, Geoff Mosher's ready to go for today's Football at 4. Let's bring him in now as we kind of talked about a couple of keys, one of which is Jalen Hurts and his ability to do stuff with his legs and how much that has evolved this offense. Jeff, last year he looked clunky at times. He looked like a guy who was trepidatious to run the football. And I think in the last 5-game win streak here, you've seen more of him doing damage with his legs. And this is a team in Washington plays a lot of man coverage that you can get that done against.
Yeah, there's no question that Jalen Hurts' ability to run and sort of, I guess, the re-explosion in his run game as compared to last year has been a big part of the Eagles' ability to move the chains. I think it's been a nice compliment to Saquon Barkley, what he gives in the running game. And then just even in the passing game, when things break down, he's been able to make really significant plays throughout this win streak by running the ball. It's funny because Greg Cosell and Adam and I, we do the show Inside the Tape, which will be out a little later this afternoon, if not in a few minutes. And we find plays all the time that we call off structure plays because, you see him not really going to the read where it's supposed to, and then the play kind of gets messed up a little bit because of that. But then he figures out a way to make a great play out of it using his legs, sometimes by running or sometimes by running out of the pocket. If you remember the 30-yard pass to A.J. Brown in the game this past weekend against the Cowboys, if you watch it, and I'm sure coaches do this all the time, right, when they're game planning against Jalen Hurts, it's mind-boggling why he didn't throw it to A.J. Brown when A.J. Brown was open on the in-cut. It was a simple 1st and 10 and a beautifully drawn 4-strong play where he's wide open in the zone. But for whatever reason, Jalen's like, nah, I'm not going to throw that pass. And then the pocket breaks down, and then he runs to his left, and it becomes scramble drill. And A.J. Brown then just finds the big hole in the whole void down the field where nobody is because Jalen's scrambling, and then it becomes a 30-yard gain, and you're like, great play, even though that wasn't the design of the play. But his ability to do that is unique. Him, Josh Allen, there are a few quarterbacks who do that, who make good plays off structure when the on-structure play would have been good, but the off-structure play wound up being better.
The other thing here is you have a situation where you are back to full health. Give me the impact in your mind of getting Jordan Mailata back and what that means for this offense, because Fred Johnson has been, he hasn't killed them, but how much different are they now with Mailata back?
Yeah, no, Fred Johnson's been about as good as you can ask for a backup left tackle, who really is a right tackle being asked to play left tackle. But when he has at times been helped out by the coaching staff with a tight end on his side, chipping, blocking, which, is not the full function of your offense. If you have Jordan Mailata out there, you leave him on an island and that gives you that fifth outlet. And that means that fifth outlet or fourth outlet doesn't need to be kept in for even a second or two to chip. And it just gives you that extra ammunition, especially when you're facing the better teams, to have all your weapons at your disposal and not be limited by keeping guys being kept in or chipping or blocking or anything like that.
Moshe, I know the other thing is you guys handed out your midseason awards. One of them I wanted to kind of get into I thought was interesting because I think you said that the offensive MVP is a landslide, and you go Saquon Barkley, and that seems like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but this team averages 30 points a game with A.J. Brown on the field, 17 points a game when he does not play. It sounds like the offense is a lot different when A.J. Brown's not here. Is he the most valuable guy to this offense?
Fair point. I think that would have been you know how it is with voting. When you win it last year, you can't win it again. I'm pretty sure we gave it to him last year.
Well, you said landslide.
Well, I just think that it's not just the production, but it's when and how he has produced. And then there is a little bit of that production over expectation. He's always been a very good running back, but he's run so much stronger this year. His contact balance has been better than it was with the Giants. His ability to catch the ball down the field has really been useful for them. And I do think that even with A.J. Brown, if they didn't have Saquon Barkley to give that complementary element of their offense, like if you just put DeAndre Swift in there, like you saw last year, they had A.J. Brown healthy, they had DeAndre Swift healthy, but they just weren't right down the second half of the year. Having a guy like Saquon sort of put them over the hump, and he gives you just that much more. So we gave it to Saquon. Remember last year, A.J. Brown had like 5 straight games of 100 and something yards, so I think he was our first half MVP last year.
Well, listen, he when they have him 30 points, when they don't 17, that says a lot there. We'll see what this offense looks like with everybody going, because this will be the first time really since the opener. Moshe, they did have everybody healthy for the Green Bay game, and that's the game that they scored the most points. So we'll see what this does for this offense now that they've played with the skill players for the last couple of weeks together. They've been really humming here. You guys talked about the most improved guy, that being Cam Jurgens, and I think that's an interesting one to bring up because I thought one of my big questions in the offseason is you played every snap over the last 10 years with Jason Kelce, and now you're asking somebody completely new and completely different to step in that spot, and you don't even notice that Kelce hasn't been here.
Yeah, and it's funny, the same way of talking about that is Cam Jurgens' improvement, and he's done a nice job, and he's done what he's supposed to do. But Landon Dickerson's a guy who nobody ever talks about. And I thought he would be a quiet, 1A candidate for most improved because he is a guy who I've always felt was a road grader and a mauler, but would struggle sometimes in pass protection. And this year, I don't remember pointing out any kind of egregious pass protection break. They may have one here or there, but I think he's actually also a really improved overall lineman, even though he was already a 2-time Pro Bowler. But when you have Landon playing at that level and Cam Jurgens doing what he's able to do at center and play the position somewhat the way Jason Kelce played it, and you're able to run your offense similarly. Obviously, you have Jalen Hurts making more decisions as far as blitz protections or protections, but still, nice job by Cam Jurgens.
Yeah, and yesterday they released Jack Stoll, I guess, to make room for Mailata returning here. But, man, Grant Calcaterra, interesting here now. They kept Calcaterra, they got rid of Stoll, and now Goddard's a pretty good blocker. But that backup tight end spot was a big question mark, and the two of those guys held down the fort while Goddard was out.
Yeah, we talked about Calcaterra as also a guy who's improved. I mean, he's a willing blocker, even if he's not great at it. Stoll is interesting. You're right. They parted ways with him to clear the way probably for Jordan Mailata to take that spot. But it is now past 4:00, so I would expect Jack Stoll has not been claimed, to my knowledge, by any NFL team. So I imagine he will be re-signed to the Eagles practice squad. And don't be surprised, Mike, if he is elevated for the game Thursday because he has all of his elevations left. So I would expect that not only, imagine going from getting, waived one day to not starting, but playing significantly for your team. Then about 2 days later, I think that's going to happen for Jack Stoll.
Today, Zach Bond was named the NFC Defensive Player of the Week. He is only the second linebacker for the Philadelphia Eagles since 2020. to win that award. And, man, you talk about maybe the MVP of the defense. I don't know that he wins it, but is that your pick for the guy who has kind of jumped out for defense?
Clear. I mean, I can't even – I don't think I've ever covered the team in my almost 20 years now. What's it, 2005, 2020? Yeah, almost 20 years of covering the team. I've never said an Eagles linebacker was the
do you know who the two linebackers were that won Defensive Player of the Week since the year 2000? There's been two. One I don't think is fair. Trotter is one. He is one.
Okay. Is the other one just so out of left field that it's gonna be really difficult?
No, but I don't really. I'll give you a hint. I don't really view him as a linebacker.
So he's one of those hybrid guys, right? Outside linebacker, edge rusher.
Yeah.
Was that like Reddick?
Reddick. Yep. Reddick.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Like I don't think of him as a linebacker.
No, we got to start using new terminology now. We got to start using words like off-ball linebacker or stack linebacker or on-the-ball linebacker. To really, you remember when the All-Pro team was so outdated, it would have like a fullback on it or something like that, or defenses.
The fullback's coming back, man.
It is coming back. It is coming back.
Yep, the fullback is coming back. Geoff Mosher from Inside the Birds podcast. They had their midseason awards. Bawn, you gave the first half MVP. Was there anybody else in the discussion?
On defense, no. I don't think anybody you would say has had the impact on defense that Jalen Carter's had some really nice games and flashes, and he's probably the most talented player on the defense. But no, I think it's pretty clear that it's Zach Baun. Now, I don't know what that says about the Eagles defense, to be honest with you. By the end of the year, things can change.
I was just going to say, what does that say about the defense? And Zach Baun's the MVP, and this is the second best defense in the league. I mean,
yeah. Listen, we know this. We've talked about it. They'll get some tests. I'm not taking anything away from them, but that Cowboys game was like a scrimmage. But still, we'll see. We'll see in 5 or 6 weeks. Last year they were 10-1, and we probably had all these guys winning MVP, and all this is great. And then by the end of the year, some of those guys, regressed badly. So we'll see. Let's
get your opinion on this. Talking defense, Jaden Daniels was blitzed 53% of his dropbacks on Sunday against Pittsburgh. On all those dropbacks, 31% of them he was pressured on. So 53% they blitzed. They got pressure 31% of those 53 blitzes. He was 1 for 8 for 28 yards. They sacked him 3 times. I don't know. Do you think Vic Fangio watches that tape and say, man, I need to dial up the heat a little more?
No. And I'm glad you asked me this because I want your listeners to understand. Like, I don't know if that's a PFF stat or where it came from, but there are a lot of services that provide these kind of blitz percentage stats that will say anything. Anytime there's 5 men on the line of scrimmage, we consider it a blitz or a pressure. Now, they just played the Steelers. The Steelers constantly play with 5 men on the line, and they probably sim pressure or zone blitz more than any team in the league, which is they show you 5, show you 6, but in the end, they're really just rushing 4. Or they're also a team that kind of believes in that philosophy, and they have TJ Watt, right? So you're going to want to send 5 so you can get Watt singled up. 5 men versus 5 offensive line. It's hard to then double team TJ Watt unless you want to keep a tight end in, and that goes to your advantage if you're the defense. So this is a totally different defense that Vic Fangio runs. He does do sim pressures, but he's way more 4-man pressure. We've not seen that many 5-man fronts unless the offense comes out with 2 tight ends. That's not how Washington plays. So I don't look at that stat one single bit and make anything about it as it pertains to this coming game. But one thing I will say is, yes, the Steelers pressure a lot, and yes, they have a very good defense. And yes, those stats are sort of like, oh, well, he's only 1 for 8. Well, they scored 27 points against the Steelers defense. So they've moved the ball pretty well, even without Jaden Daniels running around. Jaden Daniels ran for 5 yards, and they still scored 27 points. So nothing about that stat makes me think that there's some kind of flaw in their offense that the Eagles are going to expose. They're just going to have to play good defense.
All right, well, Washington does not play very good defense, and they have not been very good against Saquon Barkley. He averages almost 130 yards per game against Washington in his career. This seems like, and by the way, he's played them 10 times, about 130 yards every time he plays them. But it wouldn't be a shock if he gets it again. That's where Washington really struggles. They're not great in the secondary, and this is just not a good defense.
Which is weird because, they reshaped their obviously they played entirely. You can't even use historical context here because almost every single player they have that Dan Quinn brought in is new. I mean, the only guys that are still there are like Deron Bland, who's good. I'm not Deron Bland, Deron Payne, who's good. And then, I know Jonathan Allen's hurt, but
I mean, they brought in Bobby Wagner. They brought in Bobby Wagner. Luvu, the linebackers. They changed up. They went and got some veteran guys.
Yeah. So I don't think it's a misleading stat. I do think you can run against them, but the problem is they score really well and they don't turn the ball over. Washington only has 4 turnovers. One of them was just this last week when Zacchaeus muffed a punt. So really, they only have 3 offensive turnovers, and they're the 4th highest scoring team in the league. So you know how coaches think, Mike. Fine, I'll be leaky in run defense if I can get a 2 touchdown lead or a 10-point lead because I know the other team's eventually going to have to start chucking the ball.
Jaden Daniels obviously having a really good year, 2,100 yards, 464 yards rushing. What worries you more, Jaden Daniels, the thrower, or Jaden Daniels, the runner?
The thrower. I mean, like I said, if he can put up 27 points on the Steelers' defense and only rush for 5 yards, he can do some damage. Not that I'm not worried about his ability to run. Certainly the Eagles will have to be disciplined in their rush lanes, and he could pop a few back-breaking runs, but this guy can throw the ball, and he does a nice job of distributing the ball as well. I mean, I know Terry McLaurin is their leading receiver, as he should be, with 47 catches, but you look up and down, you got Zach Ertz with 37 catches, Noah Brown 25, Eckler is 23, Zacchaeus is 22, Diami Brown is 13, Luke McCaffrey starting to get more involved. So they are not a one-player-centric offense, which makes them tough to defend.
Yeah, and Brian Robinson coming back, I like him a lot. He's a tough the Eagles have had trouble against him. McLaurin has had some good games against Philadelphia. I'm looking forward to McLaurin against Quinyon Mitchell. I definitely want to see if Jalen Carter, this is not a great offensive line. They should be able to get some pressure from Jalen Carter game here. How important, there's 7 games. Washington's got 7 games left. Philly has 8 games left. It's a Thursday night game in November. How important do you see this game here?
Oh, it's huge. Both of these games are going to be enormous because of the schedules that both of them play and the difference between not winning winning division and getting the 2 seed, and then not winning the division and then probably getting the 5th seed, right? You would think that the NFC, well, I don't want to, you never know. There's a lot of football left to play, but it kind of looks like that right now. Winning the division will get you the 2 or the 3. Losing will probably get you the 5, and then you're on the road as opposed to being at home if you're the 2 or the 3 in the first round. And to the scheduling point, after the Eagles play the Commanders on Thursday, they're going to have the Ravens, the Rams, and the Steelers in 3 of their next 4 games. Of course, they'll have the Panthers too, and they should win that. But that's 3 games where you can't just say they're gimmies, whereas the Commanders will have the Saints, the Titans, and another gimme team in there that I can't remember, but somebody not that hard to beat. So as long as they're not hurt or
they have New Orleans. Yeah, they have New Orleans. I think it's on the road at New Orleans. They do play Atlanta late in the year.
Yeah, but in their next 3, I know it was, like you said, New Orleans. It was the Titans, who are just terrible, and then they had another game. Oh, the Cowboys. So that's right after the Eagles. So, I mean, you got to, even if you win this game and you're up 1.5, then you got to hope that, you're good against the Steelers and you're good against the Ravens and the Rams, and they're not perfect against those teams that they should beat.
Well, Eagles enter
the advantage right now.
The Eagles enter the game right now with a 63% chance to win the East. Commanders are at 37. If the Eagles win, that goes to 81. If the Commanders win, that goes to 62. A loss for Philly, it goes to 38. And a loss for Washington, that drops to 19. So major game on Thursday night, and you can hear it right here on 97.3 ESPN. Looking forward to it. Washington, Philadelphia. This has not been a high-anticipated rivalry game for quite some time. But you have it on Thursday night, and you've had it for a long time. If Jaden Daniels is the real deal, this Washington team is only going to keep getting better. Geoff Mosher for today's Football at 4, everybody, here on the Sports Bash. Thanks, Jeff.
You got it, Mike. Talk to you.